Good morning, Hope City. Eric here with another daily Devo. This last Sunday, we went over Genesis chapter 33. I just want to give a real quick backstory on Jacob. So we know from back a few chapters before that Jacob is the son of Isaac. His brother is Esau. Jacob was born second, but he was born grasping the heel of Esau. So he got the name heel grabber or deceiver. And then throughout Jacob's life, because of this, you just see time after time, he manipulates, he lies, he cheats to get things for himself. He's very selfish in these situations. I mean, he manipulated Esau into giving his birthright. He lied to his own father to get the blessing for that was rightly Esau's. You know, all this time he goes through these things, even to the point in chapter 32 where he's still trying to manipulate his brother by sending all of these herds of sheep and goats and all these things, trying to send these things to his brother to manipulate him and say, hey, don't be mad at me, even though I did all these things. Let's get real personal for a second. How many of us can relate to Jacob? How many of us can say that we've never cheated anybody, never lied, never manipulated a situation to get an outcome that is for ourselves? I can't say that. And if I'm going to be honest with you, I relate to Jacob a lot in here. But something happened. Something changed with Jacob as he ends up in chapter 32. He ends up wrestling with God, or really, God wrestles with him. And it changed him in a way. And we see a little bit of that change, or the start of that change, going now down to chapter 33. Just right here in verse 3, it says, he himself went on ahead. Well, before it said, wait a minute, he sent all of his flocks, his servants to Esau to say, hey, to find favor with his brother. Well, all of a sudden now he's ahead of his whole family here. That's showing leadership that we haven't seen before with Jacob. And then he bowed down to the ground 7 times until he approached his brother. And we've talked about this earlier this week in some other devos, that bowing down is a sign of humility, saying, I am lower than you. And he even calls him my Lord. He's lower than his brother in this situation. He's acknowledging that his brother is higher than him. That shows humility. But I don't think that humility in this section here stops with Jacob. It also runs into Esau in verse 4. It says, but Esau ran to meet him. In this time, men of influence, men who had wealth, they didn't run. And we know this, that he had much, is if you go to verse 9 in here, it says, I have enough, my brother, Esau replied, keep what you have. Means he doesn't have anything. He's a man of influence. He's a man of wealth. So he didn't have to run. He didn't run in that time, but he did. And he ran and he hugged him, threw his arms around him and kissed him, and they wept. That there is showing forgiveness. Esau saw his brother had compassion, just like we see in the prodigal son. The father has compassion on his son. Esau has compassion for his brother and runs to him and weeps with him. And that's just a beautiful sight. And this all happens because Jesus, God, met Jacob where he was, and he transformed his life radically. Physically, he actually walked the rest of his life with a limp because he had a wrestling match with God. But not only that, God changed his name from deceiver. It says right here in chapter 32, verse 28, your name will no longer be Jacob, he said. It will be Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed. Not only does God change our hearts, but he changes our identity. He changes who we are. He takes us from our old manipulative, lying, cheating, stealing selves, and he calls us his children. We become children of God. That's something that I got out of this Devo this week. I hope you guys got something out of it too, and we'll see you next week.